This segment of Coastlife is sponsored by Dover Behavioral Health.
We do all sorts of talking on the couch here about physical health, but keeping the mind right is just as important. There's a million things that you need to be paying attention to make a difference. And today we have a special guest joining us, Dr. Karen Fitzhugh. She is over with Dover Behavioral Health. Doctor, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. So happy to be here, Charlie and Leah. Thanks for having me.
And we're happy to have you here because we're talking about something, it's a difficult conversation.
It is.
But it is an extremely important conversation because we're talking about suicide prevention. And there's a lot that people can do, that they can be on the lookout for, especially when it comes to, just keeping an eye on their loved ones. So you guys have a new campaign coming up.
We do.
Tell us about it.
We do. It's actually a national campaign. It's called Be the One. And Be the One is really about how are you available to somebody who's really struggling. And I think that's something that's really difficult for most people because we have a feeling like we shouldn't say anything, or we should, if we pretend it's not there, it's just going to go away. And the Be the One campaign is really about being the one, to be available, to ask questions, to make sure that somebody knows that someone is paying attention and seeing them for the problems that they're having.
Yeah, this is a great campaign to be a part of.
And I wonder if, I don't know if you've seen this in your own time working in this field, but as we kind of retreat a little bit into the internet, is it a little harder sometimes to see what's going on with people?
Charlie, it's a really, really good point, because what we know for people retreating into the internet or spending a lot of time on social media is they lose connection with human beings. And when you don't have that, you start to feel isolated in ways that really exacerbate the problems around suicidality. It's particularly problematic for two age groups, although it's problematic for everybody. One is adolescents, and the other is the elderly. Because they don't have connections in the way that we have historically thought about them. For adolescents, if you think about what most adolescents went through with COVID, everybody was stuck inside, and what was our means of communication? It
Just
was
on the
totally
computer.
on the computer,
Texting,
on your
social
pad,
media,
right?
Yep.
And the reality of that is such that I don't know who's really out there to actually support me. If I look at Facebook and TikTok and Instagram, I see this really beautiful version of what life looks like, and I'm looking at my life and thinking, why doesn't mine look like that? Interestingly, we know that about 68% of adolescents actually suffer from mental health diagnosis post-COVID. And a lot of that revolves around being lonely, and a lot of that revolves around that whole issue with social media. Same thing with older adults and loneliness. Less of an issue with social media, but very much an issue with isolation and disconnection. And when you're isolated and disconnected and you don't have anybody to support you, all you're left with is those thoughts. And the more you're left, the more difficult it gets.
What are some things that maybe family or friends or allies should be doing? What should they be looking out for? Are there any telltale signs that you should be, if you're trying to be supportive, trying to make sure people in your life maybe that are having a hard time don't get too far down the road?
I think the greatest warning sign is when somebody's behavior changes. They lose interest in previously enjoyed activities. They stop going out, for instance, or they stop talking about things that they like to do. They seem withdrawn. They seem somehow different. And it may not be hugely obvious, but when you have a relationship with somebody, you can generally tell when something's not right. So that is the biggest clue. What's interesting about people who are thinking about suicide is that we have a tendency to think we shouldn't say anything. And in fact, the complete opposite is true. If the first thing you want to be able to do is go up to somebody and say, hey, you've not seemed yourself lately, is everything okay?
You feel seen.
And then, yes, absolutely. And then you say, have you been thinking about suicide? What have you been thinking about? Are you okay? And when you do that, instead of all that being stuck inside someone's head where it just goes round and round, now you've given someone the opportunity to actually be able to say something, and there's a pathway out. And have somebody hear you and see you. Then we actually are able to start doing something about it. Because other than that, you all have seen stories and heard about people, and you say, oh, I never imagined. I mean, Robin
so
Williams,
happy.
right? Great
Yeah.
example, right? Everybody's like, I mean, here's this guy, had this amazing life, but nobody ever stopped to say, you doing okay? You thinking about this? What's going on?
Because you never know where somebody's at inside their head, inside the world they've constructed.
That's right. That's right.
So if you do observe maybe that a loved one is in crisis, what are some of the resources that you guys with Dover Behavioral Health have for somebody that is struggling?
So it's not just over behavioral health. I want to be really clear.
Yes.
There is a national number. 988 is the national suicide prevention number. Anybody can pick it up. Somebody answers it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's actually the same with Dover Behavioral Health System. Anybody can call Dover 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you don't even have to call. You can just come in. Don't need an appointment. Walk in the door. There's a counselor there that will immediately meet with you and talk with you about what's going on.
Is there anything else about this campaign that you want people to know, or ways that they can get involved or be that person for somebody?
I think it's important to know in the state of Delaware, the #1 cause of a completed suicide. And by the way, I'm going to talk about language very quickly before I finish that. What we don't say is committed suicide. We say died by suicide. It's a very different language, meaning that we're giving language to it that isn't sort of like pointing fingers and saying there was clearly something wrong with you, because there isn't something wrong with you. You are struggling, and we want you to know that we are available to help. So going back to Delaware, Delaware has slightly below, very slightly below the national average in terms of numbers of completed suicides per 100,000. We're between 15 and 17% of persons who complete. And the #1 mechanism of suicide is guns. And if you have guns in the house, finding a way to make sure that those firearms are locked up and not accessible. Best thing you can do is actually get them out of the house.
Yeah. Makes
But
sense.
if you don't, 57% of the completed suicides in the state of Delaware are by firearm. So an important thing.
It's really important
That is.
information to have, just to understand. And when you talk about, when you're having a discussion with somebody in your life,
The best thing that you can do is ask. Best thing that you can do.
All right. Well, Dr. Fitzhugh, thank you so much for coming in today, being with us, telling us about this Be the One campaign. I think it's always just great information. You're a great resource for people to have, especially with Dover Behavioral Health. So thank you again for coming in today.
Well, Leah and Chris, thank you. It is so important that people know about this, so thank you for making this important to you as well.
Of course.
just remember, everybody at home, that number is 988. It's very important. If you need to reach out to somebody, it's 3 little digits. Call that number.
There you go. We do have to take a quick break, but we have more Coastlife coming your way.